Well, some more final recruiting rankings are out, and Alabama players are like the Jeffersons. They just keep moving up.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and thank you for making us your first listen every single day. And I hope that everybody understood the Jeffersons moving on up joke, which, well, I mean, what a great show.
That was good.
And you couldn't make it now. There's no way you could make it now. There's too politically incorrect. But it was awesome. But
it was funny.
Speaking of
George Hemsley, wasn't that guy's name?
Sherman Hemsley.
Sherman Hemsley. George was his name on the show.
Yeah.
Sherman.
The best ever was George was trying to teach Willis how to how to make a comeback, and he said, "Watch this." He said, "Hey, Florence, your food tastes like dog food." She goes, "That's because I'm cooking for a Chihuahua." And so, I mean, that's always stuck with me. Anyway,
a factoid: one of the neighbors, Lenny Kravitz's mom.
That's right.
Still blows me away.
Okay, so ESPN's top 300 has been updated.
Yes,
and one Jalen Mbakwe.
Gumpway, as someone
Jalen
hilariously refers to Gumpway.
That is so good.
Jalen Gumpway. Yeah,
he is
stealing that from one of my BOL posters.
Yeah, he's definitely Gumpway. He is number 2 player in the country. And then
that's stunning.
Not only that, right behind him, one Ryan Williams, who is, in my opinion, rightfully considered the number 1. Well, I think they still got Jeremiah Smith number 1, but that's okay. So I'm going to confirm this while we're talking, but I love the fact that they give Ryan Williams his just desserts because he deserves all of that. And then Cam Coleman
number 2 is just stunning. Man, I like it because I love Mbakwe. And we always have freshman freaks. These true freshmen. Like last year was Downs and Proctor, and they're gone. But last year was Downs and Proctor. Every year there's a true freshman or two that ends up either in the starting lineup or a hugely significant player. And it happens like clockwork under Saban because of the level of recruiting. And now hopefully DeBoer will pick up where it left off. But who's going to be surprised if Mbakwe is a starter at corner and Ryan is the best receiver of the team and Mincy could be an impact guy. Caleb Odom could be an impact. Xavier Brown could be an impact player. I mean, there's so many candidates, but the point being that there are holes in the lineup, and maybe at some point even I need to develop some confidence. And hey, why are we worried? One of these true freshmen will be a freak.
And I was wrong. Ellis Robinson, the cornerback from IMG, is actually number 1 in the ESPN rankings. Then Mbakwe is 2nd. Ryan Williams is 3rd. And Jeremiah Smith is right behind him. Jeremiah Smith, who most people have the number 1. This is very interesting to me. The 2 top players are both cornerbacks. The next 3 players, Ryan Williams, Jeremiah Smith, and Cam Coleman, are all receivers. I don't know that I've ever seen that before. Like it's all skill position on defense or offense that's not a quarterback.
I will say it's not very NFL draft-like, but I'm starting to ramp up my draft coverage because everybody that knows I love the NFL draft. And there are 3 wide receivers in this draft that are slam dunks to go in the top 10 and probably higher than the top 10. And there is an Alabama component to it in the sense that one of these kids is from Washington. But Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors from LSU, and Roma Dunze from Washington. Slam dunk top 10 guys. So when I say that doesn't sound like the draft, I don't know. Maybe it does. There will also be cornerbacks that go pretty high in this NFL draft as well, including Alabama's Terrion Arnold.
Yeah, no doubt. But it makes it for a very weird year because usually there's going to be some quarterbacks. Now, if you want to be a little sick to your stomach, then Julian Sayin is number 9. Again, I can live with it because you have to you have to trust this coaching staff on Austin Mack. They love him. They wanted to bring him no matter the cost. And maybe Julian Sain was going to leave anyway. I've heard some hints about that because, maybe he was. But, boy, if I was Julian Sain, I probably would have stuck around to see what I could do with this. But, again, Ohio State's bringing in a good receiving class too. Other Alabama guys, they have DeMarcus Riddick.
What do you think of the odds? Speaking of Julian, what do you think of these odds? What percentage chance do you say Ryan Day is not the head coach at Ohio State over the next 3 seasons?
Okay, let me say this. I think the chances that he's not are lower now that Michigan has made a coaching change. Had Michigan kept Jim Harbaugh, I think that saved Ryan Day a little bit because you look at Ohio State's schedule, it's really kind of a joke. It's especially when you compare it to something like Alabama's schedule or any SEC schedule for that matter. They do have to go to Oregon next year. That'll be tough. And then they welcome Michigan. But other than that, it's a bunch of soup cans. And so Ohio State is going to moonwalk into the playoffs.
I was just wondering if Julian Sain would be at Alabama when Nick Saban retires and then at Ohio State when Ryan Day leaves.
Yeah.
That would just be interesting.
Well, and again, I have no problem saying it over and over again. I'm a Julian Sain fan. I wanted him on this team. I hate to see him go, but
there's always more than one good player.
Yeah, both
Julian Sain and Austin Mack could both be good players.
Exactly. And so I'm going to trust it. And here's the other thing. Because I'm such a big believer in Ryan Williams, I'm not sure the quarterback matters quite as much.
It helps. It helps. I mean, look at here's just one extreme example, 2014 Blake Sims. Blake was great. I give him all the credit in the world. I think it's one of the great stories of the whole Saban era was Blake Sims in 2014. But where would Blake Sims have been without Amari Cooper?
Let me tell you something. Think about that. Think about Amari Cooper on the 2015 team with Jake Coker. He would have made Jake Coker look so much better. What if Amari Cooper played with Bryce Young?
Oh gosh.
I mean, or what if Bryce Young had the receivers Tua Tagovailoa had?
Certainly would have answered the question we always want to know: can you have 1 million receiving yards in a season?
Yeah, I mean, we're going down a rabbit hole, but in the end, what I wanted to do.
Well, I think even Smitty helped Mac in 2020, no doubt.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Yeah, I mean,
and vice versa. Mac helped Smitty. Mac's pretty good. Mac helped Smitty. Smitty helped Mac. But when you have both, and hey, we're going to need some. I agree with you. I think Ryan Williams is going to make the quarterback's job easier, and the key will be 2025. We've got to. I think we need to reload that wide receiver room a little bit.
They do. ESPN also has Alabama ranked number 2 in their class rankings, right behind Georgia. So again, sky's not falling. I'll tell you. Yesterday, I was listening to Feinbaum for a second. They had a Big Ten or a Michigan guy on. I only caught the tail end. But they were talking about, obviously Harbaugh leaving, Sharon Moore taking over. And he said, I don't think it'll be like a catastrophe with everybody leaving like they've had at Alabama. And I thought that is such the national narrative. And it's so
hilarious.
wrong.
It's so incorrect. It's hilarious. But it's pervasive. People think, and hey, let's not ruin it for everybody. People think that our roster is decimated. Luke and I both agree. It got injured. It was bad. Losing Caleb Downs hurt. Losing Caden Proctor hurt. Losing Isaiah Bond, no one's talking about that. But losing Isaiah Bond hurt. Losing Knoblack hurt. But these aren't terminal. They're not terminal. It's just we need some Band-Aids that we can address in the portal. But between this freshman class coming in and the overall depth that Saban left, I think it's almost hilarious how that is being overplayed. We are number 8 in Pat Forty's too early top 25 list today. And I like it. Heck, when I started at number 1, of course, and then I went to 2, and then I went to 3. And by the time we got to 5 and Alabama wasn't there, I started internally rooting, gosh, I hope Alabama's like 13 or 14.
Yeah.
That would be great. Instead, they're 8. But when's the last time Alabama was number 8?
And again, that gets you in the playoffs. He does make a great point. The schedule is brutal, but that's something we'll talk about a little more. We're going to continue Jimmy's roster countdown right after this. And when I say right after this, of course, I mean I'm going to talk about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Happy Super Bowl fortnight. I don't know if I'm saying that right. To all who celebrate, from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. I love the Super Bowl. I wish it wasn't the 49ers, though. I wish it was the Lions and J-Mo and everybody else that we love, Jameer. But whatever. FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8. Not only can you bet on who will win the Super Bowl, that's Super Bowl number 58, by the way, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. New customers join today, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, which is an official partner of the NFL. All right, so Jimmy, your roster countdown, and look, we're going to call a spade. You're in the 50s because that's really what's on the roster now. We're not including the new dudes yet. So yeah, you're into some dudes that maybe we aren't quite as familiar with. And I think today you got Ty Lockwood, who's a tight end.
Yeah, Ty redshirted this past year. Actually, pretty high on Ty. I know I got him down there near the bottom, but that's because this ranking is based on what we've seen on the field. It's not based on recruiting rankings and recruiting hype. It's based on, okay, what have we seen on the field? And what have we heard from our sources from the practice fields? And when you go by that, it was kind of a really quiet redshirt year for Ty Lockwood, barely played at all in the games. I think he got him one game. I hear some pretty positive things. He looks the part, seen him around campus, looks exactly like you'd want a tight end to look at. He's got a really tall frame. One of the things I remember liking about Ty Lockwood from recruiting is, unlike a lot of tight ends, some tight ends show up and they're sort of specialists in one area or the other, like Caleb Odom, pass catcher, right? And then you look at Jay Lindsey, blocker, right? Well, Ty Lockwood, I think he's got one of these guys that has a chance to be really good at both. I mean, I think he can be a really high-quality blocker and an asset as a pass receiver. So that's why I like Ty Lockwood. But you have 6 tight ends on scholarship, the 2 freshmen coming in, 2 guys who have played a ton in C.J. Dupree and Robbie Oost. You know they're going to be the main 2 guys. Danny Lewis, has to be ahead of Lockwood too, right? So, and since he's got 3 tight ends ahead of him who have all played, who are sort of veterans, I'm not sure that we'll still see a lot of Ty this year in his year 2. But don't forget about him. He's a guy that might take a hot minute, and it's going to take a while for the depth chart in front of him to clear. But I do think that his future is bright, and he's a good player, and I'm glad we have him. It's just kind of a deep spot for us right now, and he's not necessarily a need for this season. So probably one more year on what I would call the shelf. But Dupree and Oost are moving on after this year. So I would say Ty Lockwood might be a significant player for Alabama as soon as the spring of 2025, which isn't far off.
6 tight ends is a lot when you're dealing with just 80, what is it, 85?
85. Mm-hmm.
85 scholarship. I mean, 6 tight ends is a lot. So what it makes me think, number one, I mean, obviously there's always a portal possibility for somebody. And maybe that comes after spring. The other thing I think about is somebody like Caleb Odom, maybe year 1. Yeah, I mean, obviously tight ends, but maybe he splits out a little bit more and he's big dude, jump ball kind of guy near the goal line versus traditional tight end. But again, I mean, that remains to be seen. But I'm so high on Caleb Odom, and I love the fact that he was ranked a 5-star by you guys there at On 3.
Yep. And I think Odom, I suspect Odom's going to play an Amari Niblack type role very early, maybe even this fall. So that's one more guy in the pecking order that would be ahead of Ty Lockwood. But again, Ty Lockwood's a great example of what we talked about earlier in the show when we're like, man, people just underestimate what's on this Alabama roster. Lockwood's a great example of that because he's probably not even in the picture to play this fall. And he's a good player. He's gonna be a good player at Alabama. I have almost no doubt about that at all. But Alabama's just sort of got a good situation at tight end like they do at most spots on the field. And I just don't think we'll see a ton of Ty. but he is good. Got to remember, beat Ohio State for him. Committed to Ohio State. And by the way, check out Ohio State's tight ends in the NFL. I mean, that they're almost Georgia-like in terms of what they've produced in the NFL in recent years. And probably because they play an offense a lot like Alabama, where it's a pro offense in terms of their physical running the ball, but they also throw it around a lot. And tight ends do at Alabama and at Ohio State and at Georgia what they're asked to do in the NFL.
Iowa's the tight end king, though. Punter and tight end king. They just – I don't know why we don't just beat down Iowa's door for their tight end in the transfer portal every year. But I'm going to tell you something.
They play physical. That's why, I mean, Iowa, for all the joking about Iowa's offense, and I get all of it, I even make the jokes myself, they've been physical on offense for a while. And, boy, the NFL is all about that.
Very quickly, because in the next segment, what I'm going to do is talk about the latest bracketology. Auburn hired DJ Durkin, who Alabama was looking at. You and I talked about this, and you and I actually talked about DJ Durkin. I mean, yeah, he's got a bit of a past, but, I mean, it was a while back. It wasn't quite – maybe his involvement wasn't quite as egregious as it lets on. But what I do find hilarious – not hilarious, ironic, and kind of sad, actually. Hilariously ironic and sad.
Hilarious and sad.
You know, the same group of people who have just absolutely eviscerated Brandon Miller without knowing any of the facts, without knowing that, hey, he really wasn't involved in this thing at all, which y'all are talking about. And it didn't even go down in the way that you think it went down. And everything is proven that. And it's all come to light. And Brandon Miller should be totally exonerated. They still consider him to be an accessory to what happened. And those people have no problem hiring the likes of DJ Durkin, or for that matter, Bruce Pearl or Hugh Freeze. And it's just sort of, look, I mean, I'm fine with DJ Durkin. He's already gotten some second chances, sure, and I'm fine with him moving up the ladder. I don't have a problem with DJ Durkin. I think what happened there, I'm not sure. I think his involvement wasn't as egregious as people think, like I said earlier. And I also think at the same time that whatever's happened, you do have to eventually you pay your penance, and then you have to let them move on. The same way if you go to jail for something, when your sentence is up, I think it should be like, okay, yeah, you'd never forget that this person necessarily was in prison for a while. At the same time, he's out of jail now. He paid the price. We asked him to pay a price, and he paid it. So I just find it interesting. But before Alabama fans say too much about DJ Durkin, I think it also should be noted that Saban was very close to hiring him.
Had Saban stayed, I would even go so far as saying, based on what I know from inside the program, had Saban stayed, DJ Durkin would be on Alabama's staff right now. He would not be the defensive coordinator. He was going to be the outside linebacker coach, and defensive end, probably an outside linebacker coach, special teams coordinator. Looked like that was almost a done deal at the time that coach decided to retire. So it is kind of funny how, but hypocrisy dominates politics and sports fans. And by that, I just mean, had Alabama hired DJ Durkin, the Auburn fans would have been relentless. But that didn't happen. Instead, Auburn hired him. So now Alabama fans will be relentless on Auburn about it, who will be defending it. The same Auburn fans defending it that would have been killing Alabama had Alabama hired. And so it just shows how absurd all of that really is. And like you, Luke, I think his involvement has been proven to have been, he's, the head coach was responsible for all of it. So he was responsible in the sense that the captain is responsible for all that happens on his ship. And he was responsible in that way. But directly responsible, he wasn't even there. I mean, he wasn't even there when it happened. And I think it goes too far. And he did pay a significant price in terms of lost a head coaching job. Might not ever get one again. No telling how much money. But he did pay a price. And like Luke said, I mean, when you rob a bank and they send you to jail for 15 years and you spend 15 years in jail, when you get out, they shouldn't be pointing at you going, you robbed a bank. You paid the price for that. And once you get out, and I think DJ Durkin's kind of out,
All right, Jimmy, when we come back, I want to talk about the latest bracketology on ESPN. It's good news for Alabama. but I want to tell everybody about Jace Medical. I know we come to sports to escape some of the craziness realities of real life, but can we please just talk for a minute about prepping for actual life? According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade. And it is bad. I know a lot of people have had it. It's real scary stuff. I can't imagine a more helpless feeling than if one of my children got sick while a supply chain issue kept them from life-saving medication they needed. Thankfully, we will be okay because of Jace Medical. I got a Jace case. The Jace case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinusitis, skin infections, among others. This stuff could happen to any of us at any time. Visit jacemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. Go to jacemedical.com and use offer code LOCKEDON to get $20 off that order. That's jacemedical.com and use offer code LOCKEDON for $20 off that order. So the latest bracketology is out. I love looking at these things.
Some Joey Brackets or Jerry Palm? Joey Brackets?
Oh, let's see. Well, this is Joey Brackets, I believe. Let me be sure. Yeah, Joe Lenardi. So Joey Brackets. By the way, before I get into it, there's a thing going around that, like on Reddit, some girlfriend said, "Hey, for whatever reason, my boyfriend just started calling me Tony Pizza." And I hate this nickname. Does it mean something? And like apparently nobody knows what it means, and like on Twitter somebody was talking about. They go, "Yeah, that sounds like something Tony Pizza would say." I mean, and for whatever reason that's cracking me up. I don't know why, but Joey Brackets, Tony Pizza. So okay, Alabama is a 3 seed in the East. Here's what I don't like about these bracketologies. Tell me if you get this. What I don't like about these bracketologies is a lot of times they don't take into account the regular season games that you've played, meaning about like potential rematches. What I mean is, all right, so they have Alabama 3 seed in Memphis. The 6 seed is Clemson. I don't think the committee will do that. I don't think the committee will say, "Oh, in the second round, we're going to have a Clemson-Bama rematch." I just don't think that'll happen. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't come into play, but it feels like something they wouldn't do. Now, in the East, by the way, they also it's like you sometimes you get those teams you just can't avoid. We can't avoid UConn. They have UConn, the number 1 seed in the East. I would assume they are the number 1. Actually, they have Purdue, the number 1 overall seed. I would rather play Purdue again than UConn, to be honest with you. I
think UConn's going to win the national championship, but like we said just yesterday on the show, Luke. I mean, to me, it's so wide open. It's so wide open. Now I'm going to pick if I was doing my brackets, Jimmy Brackets, as opposed to Joey Brackets.
Jimmy Pizza.
Jimmy Brackets was today. Jimmy would have UConn winning it all.
Yeah,
but at the same time, I'd be filling it out. I'd be going, I am so glad I don't bet money on any of this because it is going to be more wide open than ever. But I'm with you, Luke. UConn would be my pick to win the whole thing, though Purdue would certainly be a factor. In terms of whether they'd match up Alabama and Clemson early, I don't know. I'm not sure. I know this. Clemson's good, and we lost to them in Tuscaloosa. But
we've gotten better. They've gotten worse.
If all that stands between Alabama and the Sweet 16 is Clemson, okay. I think that's a fair test. And if you don't beat Clemson, you don't deserve to be in the Sweet 16. So I think that would be an intriguing matchup. PJ Hall, boy, he's good. He gave us fits.
And they got screwed at Duke, by the way. But the number 2 seed in that bracket would be Wisconsin. And again, yeah, I'll take my chances against Wisconsin. I mean, they're good. I'm just saying.
Good but beatable.
The other 2 seeds are Arizona, Marquette, and Tennessee, which I obviously don't think Tennessee would be there with us. But I'm saying of those, okay, I like that one the most. The other number ones are North Carolina, Houston, and UConn and Purdue. And if I had to rank the number ones I'd want to play, it would probably go North Carolina, Houston, Purdue, UConn. I mean, I would rather play North Carolina than any of them just because I think they're good, but they're not great. And here's the other thing. I saw an Auburn fan, Babysitter Bari, who we've talked about on the program before. He talked about how he doesn't think Alabama should be a 3 seed. They got 6 losses. Auburn's a 4 seed in this bracket, and they only have 4 losses. And he's like, if games don't count. And I said, but Auburn's played such a terrible schedule, and also this isn't this isn't their fault on the SEC side. Auburn's played a really bad SEC schedule so far. The only quad 1 games they played are Alabama and Mississippi State, and they lost them both. Now they will have opportunities later, but they don't play
road
Tennessee.
wins. Their road wins are Vanderbilt and Arkansas, the 2 easiest ones right now.
Yeah, Arkansas might be the worst team in the league. I know they have a win over A&M, but they might be the worst team in the league. They are coming apart at the seams.
It's bad enough when the committee counts losses in terms of determining who should be in the college football playoff, but doing it in basketball is the most absurd. I mean, Auburn's good. I've given them a ton of credit and will continue to give them credit. I think Auburn's a really good basketball team, but their schedule just doesn't add up to Alabama's or even close. I mean, Alabama's played one of the most extreme schedules in the sport, and Auburn's on the lighter side. So you have to factor in the schedule. And obviously, Joey Brackets knows of what he talks. That's why his whole name is Joey Brackets. It's probably right there on his birth certificate. That should have been amended by now.
All right, buddy. That's going to do it for today's pod. We will be back tomorrow with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.